Welcome back, everybody, to the Fearless Training Raw Knowledge podcast, and I'm here with Crystal.
Hey guys.
Welcome back, or welcome on for the first time, not welcome back.
It is the first time, yeah.
So for those who might not know, Crystal and I merged at the start of this year into our businesses, so now we're working together. We're going to probably do a bit of an origin story on Crystal. So if you go on the any of the website or the Instagram pages, you'll learn more about her and what she does. But we thought it'd be good to kind of do a bit of a backstory as well.
Yeah, exactly.
To give people an idea. But a phenomenal coach, also my beautiful partner. And now we're on this journey together. So today, we're going to be talking about some of your biggest struggles, the same ones that our clients have, the same one that really, we all kind of have when we start our fitness journey. So we want to just deliver immense value. We've always talked about that. We want to remove the gimmicks, remove the bullshit, and just give you things that you can action to get towards your goals, because we understand there's so much information out there and it's really confusing. And that's what we're going to be covering today.
Exactly. So we have had a couple of the biggest struggles come through. So we have got 4 that we're going to cover today. And pretty much, just as Alex said, we're going to break down the bullshit, just make it as simple as possible. Because really, like training, nutrition, it isn't as hard as what we make it out to be. And a lot of the time it's things just like we're procrastinating or coming up with excuses really, rather than doing the one thing to actually get it done.
That's it. And that's often what it takes, right? Starting with the one thing and then progressing from there. All right, so let's dive in. So the first one, and we'll just oscillate between the both of us. So they don't know how to progress in the gym or maximize their results. So you guys, you're not sure how to actually, keep progressing. Maybe you've hit a stall, a plateau, or even you're not really getting the returns that you want to see in the mirror. So Crystal, when a client comes to you with this, or they ask you this question, or they're having this struggle, especially when they first on board, is usually the case. What are some things that you will tell them to help them start to move in the right direction?
So when I read this question, I do get 2 different things from that as well. So firstly, what I would look at is pretty much what they've done now, but also in the last 6 months, because it's kind of like building a story for us in regards to the journey that this person or yourself has been on. When we talk about progressing in the gym, maximizing the results, we are looking for things like progression overload, but that's pretty much kind of how you are progressing. But a lot of the time, the reason why people aren't progressing is because they're not actually being consistent or tracking. So that's probably my biggest thing is, more diving into a bit more of actually tracking your workouts, doing the same thing, not going in and just doing a random workout after workout, things that you're getting off the internet or Instagram, or as well jumping from coach to coach, which unfortunately a lot of people will do because they're kind of expecting those results, expecting that maximizing on the results within a week, which unfortunately is not the case. So the biggest thing for me in regards to what I look at when people are talking about progressing in the gym, and that is how consistent are you actually being?
Yeah, exactly. So probably worth noting as well, we're going to make some assumptions because as Crystal said, it's all about context. So if someone comes and asks this question, it's kind of like saying, oh, what's the best workout? Or, I'm struggling with my food. What should I be doing? It's like, well, the answer is it depends, because we really need to know your backstory. So, as Crystal was saying, first of all, it's about, okay, well, where have you got so far? What have been your struggles? All of these other things. So we're going to kind of fill the gaps a little bit, because obviously we don't know each individual background, but ultimately the same principles are going to kind of, converse throughout. So, as we were saying there, first of all, it's like, well, how far along the journey are you? And what have you done so far? What are the biggest hurdles? Have you worked with a coach before? Being specific about like what results you expect. And I think starting with the end in mind is really key, because a lot of people, they want X, but they're doing Y. That's the biggest thing that I see. There's a misalignment between what they want and the work they're willing to put in, because they think that this end result is going to happen with what they're doing now or a lot less. And usually in life, if you want something, you've got to times it by a number, and then that's what it usually takes. Or we're doing a lot of things that don't really add to it. They're not maximizing the return on investment, because we're not really sure about how to, eat effectively or train effectively. So oftentimes it's that whole maxim of you can achieve more from less. Now that doesn't make sense because more is more, but what we mean is a lot of people are doing things that have a low level of like what we call a low level activity. So when they're in the gym, they might be doing like 5 or 6 days. Like for me, I get a lot of young guys or or people any age, and they're in the gym 5 to 6 days a week. And I used to think this too. I thought, man, the more I go to the gym, the more gains I'm going to make. But as maybe you've found out, that's not the case, because muscle is broken down in the gym, it creates an adaptation. But also, if we're not training effectively in the gym, we might be doing sort of, 5 hours a week, but really we're only getting a percentage of that return because most of the sets or the reps that we're doing, we don't have proper form. We're swinging around on weights, we're not actually activating muscle groups. Maybe we're not even choosing exercises that really target and maximize the muscle tension or create more volume because we're doing things that are a bit novelty. So I think, going back to the clean slate initially, so thinking about, okay, what are your constraints? What time do you have to commit to the gym? And then from there, it's about identifying, within the gym setting and training, what are the exercises that you can be doing that maximize the result. So usually in this case, if you're here, you want to build muscle and strength, you have an aesthetic goal, and then learning how to do those movements properly. If I could go back in time, I would learn from a good coach or hire a good coach where possible to teach me technique so that I could do less, avoid injury and niggles, and actually progress in these movements. And then with nutrition, I think the biggest thing is just being aware of what you're putting in your mouth. And that's where it kind of starts with that. So in terms of, do you want to add anything else to that question before we move on? Because it's a big one and we can go down multiple avenues.
Yeah, it's definitely a multiple avenue one, but probably just to give you guys a bit of a clean answer to it. So how would you progress in the gym to maximize results? Track your workouts. Day in, day out, track your workouts, and then look at things like, those little progressing, whether it be 1 rep or 1 set, but also being honest with yourself with the weight that you are lifting. And as Alex said as well, technique. If you're going in and you're just throwing weight around, you're not actually doing, the correct exercise. You're not maximizing the return on investment in actually getting under that bar.
And that kind of encapsulates everything really, though, doesn't it? Because it's tracking with your sleep and your recovery, which a lot of you don't want to do, or a lot of people, when they come to us, they're willing to sacrifice the biggest performance enhancing drug that's legal, and it's sleep. They're not willing to track the nutrition. I think a lot of people say, oh, I've tried this. They've tried everything, but they've never tried tracking, because I think people put it in the too hard basket. But like Crystal was saying, once you start to track, you remove the guesswork. And it's uncomfortable because sometimes you're like, oh, okay, maybe I'm not eating as much as I thought, or maybe I'm overeating, or maybe I'm not getting enough sleep, or maybe I'm actually not lifting in the gym and progressing. So overall, it's just creating some way of tracking what you're doing. If you can track the input, you can then manipulate it, and then you can get a better output. Exactly. I mean, that's kind of the overarching thing there.
And whatever you choose to do, stick with it. Don't jump from one thing to one thing, because all you're doing is you're actually sampling, and you're not doing it, you're not tracking, you're not getting it done. So stop sampling and just choose one thing and just throw everything at it and give it your all.
Yeah, it's like the supermarket. You can look at different lines, but you got to stick with one, because there's no magic. It's just get started with something, and then from there you've got data, and then you can manipulate it, right?
Yeah.
All right, so move on to the next one.
Yeah, so we're going to jump into the next one, which actually kind of ties into the first one, which is
they all tie in.
Yeah, definitely. But they struggle to create consistency and stick to a plan. So, Alex, what would your biggest tips be in regards to someone who is struggling to create the consistency and then stick to that plan?
Absolutely. The biggest one is, first of all, identifying your constraints. So looking at your habits and behaviors, what does that mean? It means, as I alluded to in the first question, a lot of people want to do, they want to go from 0 to 100, but they're not even progressing. And to me, that just is nonsensical. It's almost ludicrous, because you're not getting results anyway, but you want to do everything brilliantly or not at all. And that's just silly, because the only way that you can create consistency is by starting with things that are achievable and doable. So mini wins. So I would personally ask the client, okay, what are your confinements? You know, when can you get to the gym? What access to gym equipment do you have? Where are you at with your nutrition? You know, you've got to meet people where they're at. Where is their skill at? Have they tracked food before? Do they understand what's in their food? You know, and from there go, cool, this is currently where you're at right now in all of these facets with your training, nutrition, lifestyle. And that's why we have conversations with our clients. This is why we have onboarding calls, because we have to make sure that we're meeting you where you're at. Otherwise, you know, we might be starting further ahead or further behind. And then from there, setting out achievable, measurable, and actionable tasks each week, and only doing maybe 1 to 3 maximum, even just 1. And then from there going, cool, can you do that? Yes or no? And once we've problem solved that, cool, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? As I've said before, it's not sexy. It's very simple, but it works because time moves fast, and if you make these mini wins every week and you build in things in your lifestyle that are sustainable, that are flexible, that are achievable, eventually those things compound, just like putting money into a bank account, and all of a sudden you're further down the road and your baseline average and your consistency is already now just a lot higher as a byproduct. It's like your habits that you already have in your life now, good or bad, they're just things that you do naturally. So I think that's what we want to look at when we as the foundation of curating consistency, which enables someone to stick to a plan long term.
I'll agree with that. So yeah, definitely not celebrating the small wins in like an excessive sense, but definitely noting them down. So even just, yeah, as Alex said, creating, as if it's like mini goals for the week as well, because it's consistency that we're starting to formulate. At the beginning, yes, when you start with someone, you're motivated, you just want to throw everything at it, kind of like, yeah, give me everything, I'm going to do it. Then the next thing, people are going to get overwhelmed, and then usually that's when people, tend to drop off, stop training, or overlook their nutrition, things like that. So just taking, kind of stripping it back, creating a couple of small wins that you can have throughout the week, and then building off from there. Yeah,
absolutely. You've got to look at, first of all, what you can do. And then from there, once you can do that, you can add on, like you said, because a lot of people will get overwhelmed. And then that is where usually then depending on your personality type, you'll either freeze and then you'll just kind of throw your toys out and do nothing. Or you'll dig your heels in and do something, but then eventually you'll burn out anyway. So it really is identifying for yourselves what you can do initially, and everyone's different, and you have to acknowledge that, because you can do a lot with a little. It doesn't, like we said in the first part, it doesn't mean that more is always better. Something else, something actionable that you can do as well is identify why. Why are you striving for the current goal? And what we mean by that is get really specific on what you want to achieve. Everyone that comes to us wants to build muscle, lose fat, and get stronger. And that's great, but that's like asking someone, do you want more money in your bank account? Most people are going to say yes, but it's vague. So what is it about more muscle, about gaining strength, about losing body fat that you actually want? And then that's where you can tie it emotionally to why you want to do it. So for example, for some people, it's because they've neglected their health and they want to actually be young or active they want to feel younger or active with their kids. For some other people, it's because they always wanted to look like a superhero, or they want to understand how to take it to the next level. But you have to really get granular on why is that. And then if you use pictures, if you have affirmations, if there's things that inspire you, because you want to compare yourself to yourself, then you want to include that. Because on the days where it is hard and you're unmotivated, because we talk a lot about this with our clients, you're not always going to be motivated. You can't rely on motivation. It's fleeting, meaning it comes and it goes. We have to rely on discipline, routine, structure, habit, and by modifying our environment, and again, having a why, having that sort of end result always in mind, and we're reverse engineering it and breaking it down. Sometimes we need to just have a little look up and go, oh, okay, yes, that might seem far away, but this is the reason why I'm doing it. Because your why should be your fire, it should be your passion, it should be the unrelenting fuel that is always there, that will never run out. And look, sometimes we get down and out, and that's why you have a coach, because we are here to help, guide, assist, listen. We are there to provide somewhat of motivation. We're not there to do it for you, but we're there to give you 120%. And, you know, we want you to put in that same amount. So I think really identifying your why, because a lot of people don't, and it sounds really silly because it's quite obvious, because we kind of always on surface level of like, yeah, I want to do this and this. But when it's always vague, your input will always be matched by that. It won't be specific. It won't be as intense. Your intentions are not there because your goal is so vague. So really you don't know where you're aiming. It's such a big target. So you need to get like granular, and that's where we break it down into maybe it's gaining, you know, 2 kilos of muscle or something like that, or maybe initially it's like, can we get to 8 hours of sleep? There's all these little things that we can break down into like mini goals, or they call them process or progress goals. So I would say that's a big thing for everyone listening and watching to do. What do you think? Anything else that you'd give them that they could do?
Yeah.
All right, so next one. All right, so you struggle to get back on after falling off. So again, we can see how these are all interrelated, and most things they're all one and the same, and then it's just about identifying where they fit or what is relevant to you. So a lot of people, they fall off the bandwagon, they can't get back on. So Crystal, sink into this one, like what would you say is a conversation you have with a client if this was the case?
So this one I find more with females opposed to male clients. And I think the biggest thing, it actually kind of comes into that whole motivation thing, because usually so just from what I've noticed recently with a few clients that we've had to kind of help get back on to looking after them, them looking after themselves, is it's usually when they've done something like a deficit or they've had a big win, right? So then, you know, the motivation's obvious. It's always going to be there when you start to actually see these little changes, especially when you're in a deficit and you're starting to feel good about how you look and everything. It's like, yeah, we're like fucking ready to go. And then they will have, you know, let's just say one night where they may not, you know, they may splurge a little food wise or have a bit of fun, and then from there it's kind of like that's when the motivation for them kind of stops, because I think what happens there from having conversations is that the next day they feel guilty, whereas don't enjoy yourself, like allow yourself to create that balance in that lifestyle. So I find it's usually after they have, you know, 1 or 2 days where they may have, you know, overate or something like that, and they feel real shit about themselves. So it's kind of like where that motivation then drops off. Then they, you know, they don't feel comfortable going to the gym because I've had 2 days of, you know, having a little bit more food than usual, or maybe not training after a couple of days. And it's kind of like they've then compromised all these wins that they have had because they're feeling really insecure about what has happened. So it's kind of like a vicious loop. And I find that that's pretty much the biggest thing, because it takes people so much longer just to get back on. But then when they try to, it's kind of like comes from a sense of fear that people would then go, oh shit, so I'm going to try everything. I'm going to do more steps. I'm going to do more training sessions. I'm going to eat less. So kind of trying to get back to this part here, which is where the vicious loop kind of places, because that's unsustainable. They try that for a few days until they're burnt out, and then it's just this vicious loop, this vicious cycle. So my advice would be, when you are struggling to get back, you know, I don't want to say on the bandwagon, but if you are struggling to build yourself back up to being in that comfortable state as well, one, be honest with your coach. Definitely be honest and be open and say, hey, look, I'm actually struggling, rather than, you know, maybe a lot of people will not reach out to their coach. So try to keep it under wraps. But at the end of the day, the coach always knows. We always know what's going on. So definitely being honest with, hey, like I actually need a little bit more help. Secondly, if you don't have a coach and if you're doing this by yourself, be kind to yourself. Bring it back, strip it down to just being simple. Just create yourself those simple tasks, like when we were talking about being progressive in the gym, and just, you know, creating those and building up the consistency again. Just strip it back down to small wins. Yeah, okay, you've had a month off, or you've had, you know, a few days off and you're not feeling great about yourself. Cool, let that shit be in the past. And then just go, all right, today's task, I'm just going to get to the gym. A couple of days, I'm just going to get to the gym. Maybe when you start to feel comfortable with that, cool, now I'm going to think about my nutrition. Start to break down again those little wins, because it's so easy to get overwhelmed. And it's even more easier to get overwhelmed when you've actually already had these wins, because then you're just trying to get back to here, whereas never try to go back to your past. Just always build yourself up to be better than your past. That's probably my biggest thing in regards to falling off.
Yeah, some good points, because it's not about, people are in this binary mindset all the time of on, off, good, bad, black, white.
Yeah.
And this is the hardest thing, right? This is what we teach our clients, is critical thinking, where, you know, if we were to use a model, it's not about good or bad, it's like good, better, best. There's always something you could have done better, possibly, but sometimes things aren't bad or good. Sometimes it was like, you know what, that was all right, could have done better, cool. Sometimes we have a great week, but life is constantly throwing us unpredictabilities, and this is the whole, you know, people say, I'll get started when I'll get started. The best time's always now. It's just about doing what you can with what you have. You know, we always talk about focus on the things you can control, and we're all guilty of it. We can get very caught up sometimes and start worrying about things that are out of our, you know, bandwidth or out of our control. We can't actually, you know, they affect us, but it's like, hang on a minute, I can't really change that. So if we focus our energy, attention, which we have a limited time of every day or limited resources, then we can actually start to move the needle forward. You know, again, it's like what Crystal said, it's keeping things simple, right? And we have like an acronym for that, and what we use with simple, and our system is simple because it really is. And it's us, it's humans that create complexity and confusion. Like, life really is simple, you know, without getting too philosophical about it, because ultimately, you know, the principles of everything in life are very linear. You know, they don't have emotion to them, to varying degrees. But as humans, we've created all of these, you know, ins and outs and rules for ourselves, from money to setting up this to setting up that. And this is where the confusion lies. And this is where you might be sitting there now, listening or watching or walking, whatever it is, and going, yeah, it's just, I'm so confused about this and that and this. And we get it because we have the same, especially in other areas of life too. But the principle remains: if you keep things simple, or you try to get to the root cause of what's going on, or you apply the knowledge that is factual, you will always get to the end result. The hard is, how do you sort of depict that? So when, you know, if you're falling off all the time, I'd be asking the client, you know, what is it that you're falling off with? You know, what if there's a common pattern, there's something that's not working, and it's about going, okay, do we need to change that? Do we need to modify that? Remember, there's many ways to achieve the goal as long as we're abiding by the principles. But sometimes we're so fixated on things being and looking a certain way. For example, when, I know me and Crystal both did this, when we started training, we would be like, okay, we have to, you know, eat these foods at this times, and it has to be in this quantity, and maybe, you know, I have to do these exercises, and if I don't, I'm going to lose muscle, and if I don't eat at this time, I'm going to lose my gains. Now there was nothing that is factual about that. It really, because we were kind of taking this from what we'd learned, from what we'd seen, from maybe other coaches or the material that we were consuming. But we had these ideologies in our head that we kind of gave power to, which weren't real, because, yeah, sure, if you don't eat for an elongated period of time, you're probably going to lose muscle. You know, and if you don't do any exercises, you're not going to gain it or retain it. But the truth is actually very different to what we think in our mind. And usually the minimum is actually a lot less than what we think, meaning that at the end of the day, if we arrive most of the time hitting our, you know, most of our calories, and we get within our protein, fats and carbs, if we, you know, choose exercises that offer that return on investment, you know, they work multiple muscle groups, so progressing over time, we're getting enough sleep, for the most part, like 20% does 80% of the job. It's the 80-20 rule. And then as you get more advanced, that's when those things are really hypercritical. But I think all of those, not myths, but it's like the whole, like, you got to eat every 2 hours. That stems from bodybuilders and athletes who are on the pinnacle of their sport. They're at the very nth degree. They've maximized everything. And maybe that is the difference, because they're eating 6,000 calories a day and, you know, they're performing. But for most of you guys, you don't need to do that. And it's not realistic for most people. And even when you're an athlete, you'd be surprised that if you work smarter, what you can achieve. So if you understand the principles and you understand the fundamentals, it kind of sets you free. So again, it's like, keep it simple, Go back to what you can actually do. As long as you're abiding by the overarching fundamentals, you're going to get the goal, and that can often take the pressure off as well. So that'd be my biggest thing, you know, like, why are you falling off? What is it that you're doing? And do you actually need to do it? Because oftentimes you don't. And then that's where sometimes you need a coach to be able to talk through that so you can understand. They go, you know what? What I thought is actually not true. And you need to change your way of thinking, which can be challenging, but we've got to be coachable. We've got to be open to learning. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else to add to that one?
No, the only thing that I would say is, just because you were just talking about, you know, like training, retaining muscle and that, is that it takes 2 to 3 weeks of no training, so pretty much being bedridden, for your body to actually start breaking down muscle as well. So if you've missed training, let's say for 2 weeks, but you've still been active, chances are you're not even losing your muscle in that scenario anyway. So just, being kind, keeping it simple, and being honest with your coach is probably the biggest thing. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's why we all have them. We all need mentors. We all need support systems, coaches, things like that if we want to get ahead. But oftentimes just a psychological thing. We look flatter, so we think we're losing muscle, but we're not.
Exactly, absolutely.
All right, last
Especially
question.
when you're in deficit. Okay, so our last question that we have is struggling to prioritise themselves. So Alex, what would be your biggest... I'm going to ask you first, because I feel that you are probably better at prioritising yourself than I am. One, because I am female and we tend to just prioritise everyone else before ourselves. And this is something I think that you do quite well in an unselfish way as well, is prioritising yourself. So can you let us know kind of what you do?
Yeah, thank you. You kind of hit the nail on the head there. The first thing I was going to address is that, as a general rule of thumb, it's not completely accurate, but usually females, being more motherly, nurturing, generally by nature, emotionally driven, they will prioritise other people, selflessly. And that's a beautiful thing. And I say this to a lot of my female clients, but you do not get any extra points. You are the one who lose at the end of the day. And, women go, well, that sounds a bit backward because I've got kids and, there's all these other things and I want to look after my husband and everyone else around me. And that's all well and good. But the analogy I always use is, well, CPR, for one, we all do that. And they say, who's the most important person? And we go, the casualty. And they go, no. And we go, oh, everyone else. And they go, no. And we go, oh, who? And they go, you. And it's true, and it's a backward concept, but it's actually a forward one.
They do it on the plane as well.
Do on the plane? The emergency things drop.
Yeah, they always say, put yours on first before you help anyone else.
But you think you want to put it on your kid, but you think, well, you're useless to your kid if you can't put your mask on, because you can't help anyone if you're dead. And and this is the reason why, and this sounds very biased, but it's the truth, why your health is the most important investment.
Absolutely.
Because people always go, yeah, but I want to be with my family and all this, and people are so driven. But I'm like, well, if you cared that much about your family, why don't you invest in your health so you can be around for your family? So you can not enjoy the time with them, because a lot of people I see as they age, they can't enjoy the time because they're either ill or they can't partake in activities because they are ill of health. They're not mobile. Then they've got all these health ailments, and that's actually horrible for a younger person as well. And maybe it was a different time and you grew up, it was all about hard work, it's fantastic, but at some point things have got to change. We have access to knowledge now, and an old dog can learn new tricks. I disagree with that. I think everyone is coachable. So I think, first of all, just getting that out of your head and just going, hey, you know what, you do come first, you do have to love yourself. I know it sounds a bit wanky, but you do, because then you can look after everyone else in your surrounding. And if you don't fill your cup up, or you don't have people on a good support system, then you can't fill everyone else's cup up. So I think, first of all, for me, it's just attacking that mindset, that set of beliefs where you come from. And that's hard, because depending on your religion, your background, but at the end of the day, if people come to us, we have to look at factual things, and we can't dance around the tree. And that's one thing that we really pride ourselves on, is we're very honest with people. People come to us to invest in their health. They want real results. A lot of people at this point, they're either new, or generally they've worked with a lot of coaches, they've done a lot of things, they've done a lot of fad diets, and they're just like, I'm over it, I want results. And we go, great, well, here's how you're going to get them. And it's hidden in plain sight, one of your favorite sayings, right?
Absolutely.
So I think the first thing is that, and then going, cool, what are some actual activities and things that you can do within your day for self-care? And for females and males, it can be different things. But initially, it's just, the first one is just making some time for yourself. And it doesn't matter whether it's 10 minutes or whether it's half an hour, but it's something every day to do a little bit of you, whether that's a bit of music, whether that's going to do a bit of self-care, whether it's a morning routine, an evening routine, like for me, I like to keep clean cut, I like to shave my head and my beard, and I have a time every week to do that. And, that makes you feel good, because it's not just about the external factors, but it's doing things for yourself that, keep your hygiene, keep your physical appearance, maybe re-energize you as well.
Yeah.
But I'll pass it off to you.
I do find as well, so yeah, no, definitely what you've said is bang on correct. And another thing that we probably haven't addressed is that it could also be more self-internal than what we realize. So like, unfortunately, like with people that I have, coached and getting down to the nitty gritty of it, one thing that a lot of people that do suffer with prioritizing themselves do also have in common is that there's probably a bit of lacking of self-love. But also, and it takes a while for them to also kind of admit it to themselves, is that a lot of people will actually hide behind helping others because it takes the focus off themselves as well. But they also use it as an excuse. Like, I can't do this because I've got this, or I can't do this because I've got this, when really it comes down to, actually just loving and cherishing yourself. And I'm actually listening to this audiobook. Alex is reading it, I'm listening to it because, I don't know, I think it's just the way we're kind of wired.
Oh, no, usually I like audiobooks, but I guess this one I bought physically because it forces me to
and I just love listening to it. But it's called Relentless, and there's a saying that I'm absolutely in love with at the moment, and it's one I've probably heard time and time again, but it just brings everything back to level for me, and it's that you need to create a strong mind and the body will follow. And that's just like in anything in life. But also, again, something that I've had to do, prioritize my time in regards to that, because I'm getting something out of it as well. And that's self-love to me as well, is when I can, learn something new, or even learning just like how to, level myself up for myself. I don't do it for Alex, I do it for myself, but then it comes out for us. But I definitely think that with not just females, because it's actually been a lot of males as well, is that, hiding behind prioritizing their family or prioritizing anything else so that they don't have to even think about themselves. And one thing that I always ask them is, well, when was the last time you did something for yourself? And they can't even give me an answer. They have to literally think about it. But a lot of time as well, it is that self-love piece, it's that self-care. But it even comes down to, one thing that I say to them is, I don't go much on journaling. I know Alex is definitely a journaler. For me, I can't journal. I just think that, I don't know, it's probably a self-love piece, because I don't tend to go real deep with it. I'm like, I'm thankful for my day. I'm thankful for Alex. But I'm not really diving much into it. Journaling's not really been one for me. But definitely thinking about, for me, I think more about the small wins that I've had. That's probably, one thing that I do to kind of come back to surface with me as well.
Yeah. Again, I think you said it before, it's a feedback loop people get caught into, and they get caught up in life. I mean, all of a sudden you get to a stage, you get a relationship, you get a job, you get a house, you have kids, and it's like and then before you know it, people are fat, overweight, in bad relationships. It's a slow burn.
Yeah, but also people...
Not an excuse.
Exactly. I was going to say, that's the lot of thing as well, is that people, one, don't prioritize themselves, don't prioritize it, and also hiding behind the excuse. And that's another thing. If you really want something in life, you have to be bigger than your excuses. Like the need, the goal, the drive has to be bigger than any excuse that you're gonna have, because we're always gonna throw excuses at everything.
There's always an excuse. Yeah, you've got to take extreme ownership.
Yeah, exactly. And coming with extreme ownership is loving yourself.
Yeah, well, it's just it's owning everything. It's hard, but our belief is, health and fitness is so much more than just reps and sets and, looking better in the mirror. It's more of an internal mindset. I always say to my clients, like, if you want this to be, it can be so much more powerful than you can ever imagine. And yes, it can sound a little far-fetched initially. It can sound a little sort of hyped up, but the reality of it is this just it really impacts every area of your life, and it really stems from health and fitness. And that doesn't mean you have to be a physique athlete and a bodybuilder, because people get these ideologies in their mind, but it really is just becoming the best version of yourself. But you have to grab life by the balls, because if you don't run the day runs you, and we've all been there. But you really have to fight against the river of life and the way it's designed with media these days and everything. It will steer you in that direction if you don't take control of, you know, the direction you want to swim in. Just to use a metaphor again, you know, that is habits and behaviors in general, you know, and kind of unplugging from the matrix, love that one, is kind of going, right, it is up to me. The cavalry isn't coming. No one's fucking coming to save you. There's no dramatic intervention like a film. 99% of the time, if you want something in life, you have to change it. And is it difficult? Yes, it is. Is it worth it? Absolutely. Easier said than done. So again, you know, going back to what you said, if you're not happy with your life, then you've got to make a change.
Only you can change it. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, and that's just the definition of insanity, isn't it? Just doing the same thing, and people are miserable. But it's like the sunk cost fallacy, meaning that people think if they've invested so much time into a relationship or a way of life or something, they're like, oh well, I might as well stay now. Yeah. It's like, well, no. If you're not happy with something, change your eating pattern, change your location, change your job. So many people are just walking around, messing with a mic, miserable. But it's of their own doing.
Well, that's like, so I've got a couple of GPs and that are clients, and one thing that they say to me, because like they recommend, obviously, you know, if you are unwell and you go to a GP, what's the first thing they talk about? They talk about nutrition, they talk about your training, they talk about things like that as well. And half the time then they send them to a personal trainer or a coach to actually get fit and healthy. So if you think about it, you know, like, coming from the front line of health is, if you're looking after one thing, everything else will follow. Don't wait until you're so sick and unhealthy that you go to a doctor just for them to say, hey, square one. And square one is just training, basics. Looking after yourself, going to the gym, sleep, prioritizing yourself. So that's probably the biggest thing is, if you are sick and unwell, you go to a doctor, the one thing that they say is, prioritize yourself.
Yeah, prevention's better than cure, and no drug in the plan. I mean, the drug's there to keep you alive. You know, if you've got, you know, a really bad illness or you've gone too far with something, but that's not where you want to be. No. I guess we'll end on this before we wrap it up. Is everyone's busy, and that's bullshit, because we all are, like, you know what I mean? But that's not an excuse. Like, we've all got, and we only get busier in life. There's only more things that end up coming onto our plate usually until the end, and then we retire and it's all too late, if that's the route you go down traditionally. So really, you've got to kind of, you've got to really get a handle on what are the things. Again, it goes back to what we were saying in the first question, right? The constraints, like what are your beliefs? What are your whys? What are your end goals? And you've got to start just chipping away at them, write them down, whatever it is to you, and go, right, what's the one thing I can do today that gets me closer towards my goal? Exactly. Or if I do it, it makes everything easier. Because busy, I mean, honestly, it's an excuse disguised as a brag, or it's an automatic, like, you know, even I find myself saying, oh, hey, you know, you people say, oh, you're busy. And I always say, no, I'm not busy. You know, or I'm productive, and I'm not trying to be funny with that. Or I'll just go, oh, no, this is how I'm feeling, or this is actually what I'm doing at the minute. And be a bit more specific where possible if that's someone's genuinely interested. Because it just becomes a sort of like a convenience. It's an automatic thing. But like, a lot of us aren't busy. We're mentally masturbating. We're doing minutiae. We're doing bullshit, checking emails. If we actually managed our time, if we had a camera on us, like, throughout the day, and we actually, if you reviewed our day, and this is why you track your food, your nutrition, because you actually then go, oh, actually, because in our head, we think, like, we might go, right now, we've been on this podcast for 30 minutes, and that might be right, but it's probably like 40, meaning that we always under and overestimate things. And it doesn't matter how good you are. That's why we use watches and clocks and things like that. But why do we not track the things that actually get us towards the right way? It's not a weakness, not a bad thing. It enables us, it removes the guesswork, it empowers us, it gives us back the control to be able to move in the right direction, or especially in the early days before we can do things more autonomously, more automatically. So I think just removing that and going, right, you know what, we've all got the same amount of time. Yes, some of us have got a lot less because we've got a lot of commitments, but it doesn't matter. And because the amount of clients we've worked with at this point, and you know, I can't say I've been pregnant, I'm not a female, I can't say I've got kids because we've not got any yet, you know, but I can tell you that with my own journey, and I'm not going to go into it because there's been other podcasts on that, you know, I've been through I've been through a lot. I've lived in a lot of countries, and I've been fortunate to do more than most people. And we've all got our set of backgrounds, and it's not about whose is better or worse, but that in combination with working with some of my clients who've been through the absolute ringer and they still make it happen, I'm sorry, there's no excuses, because there's always something that you can do. So it's just about going, not looking over the fence, where am I at right now, where do I want to go, and what's the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. So if you're climbing a big mountain, if you're eating an elephant, one step, one bite at a time, bam, 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 bam. And that's literally it.
Yeah.
Like I'd probably just want to I could not reinforce that enough. But anyway, see how passionate I am about that.
So probably the biggest thing is to take away, I guess, from this whole podcast, if we're going to bring all four into one, is that we're always going to be busy. We're never not going to be busy. When you're growing with life, you're going to get busier and busier and busier. So one, be bigger than your excuse. Prioritize, make things simple, and just stick to one little win and keep building up those wins. That's probably the biggest thing out of all four of them put together.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Perfect.
And I guess, you know, to wrap up, as ever, if you have any questions, please comment, you know, share this around if you found it valuable, and you probably know someone that needs to listen to this as well.
Yeah.
Something that we're going to be doing going forward is we're going to be doing more of these, but we are going to be creating, for lack of better words, a 14-day challenge, whatever it is, you know, for us, like what we mentioned at the start of the podcast, we want to give people really high amounts of value, and we want to help you. What's the simplest way to get to where you want to go? So when we say simple, like, we've come up with an acronym for it, right? And we want to give you specific knowledge and information that's qualitative, so we can maximize your return on investment, so you can make progress, get real results in less time without all the gimmicks and the bullshit. And then, you know, you have no excuses, you know, it's easy to apply, and that's kind of it. And there'll be more on this coming up, so stay tuned for that. If you're thinking about, I need to make a change, I'm not really fully ready to commit yet, all right, then let's start off with something small. So keep an eye out for that. And and then you want to head on?
I'm just going to say, if you do have any questions regarding anything that we've spoken about, or any topics that you'd like for us to cover, either comment on the video, or head over to our Instagram _fearless training, and just send us a DM as well, and we will be sure to address any concerns.
You can just use like change or something like that, but again, we'll put all the links in the description below. First one together on the podcast.
I think we did all right.
Thanks, Crystal. That was great.
Thanks.
Hopefully.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. I look forward to more. Be good. All right, team. Thanks for your time. As ever, in the meantime, stay fearless, and we'll see you on the next one.